These 5 tools completely transformed my market garden, but they weren't anything that I just impulsively bought. I made sure to strategically save for these. As gardeners, we're constantly bombarded with gadgets and gizmos, making it hard to know which tools are worth saving a bit for and purchasing. I'm sharing the 5 essential tools that I strategically saved for that have made the biggest difference in my market garden's productivity and efficiency. After running a 3/4 acre market garden in Western North Carolina since 2020 and gardening for about 20 years, I've tested a lot of tools. Let me show you about the game-changing tools that I had to wait till payday to get that changed my farm, starting with the first one that has cut my weeding time in half. Number 1 is silage tarp. I use silage tarps in my garden in 3 major ways. Number 1, I use them to kill weeds. Since I've started using silage tarps in my garden, the amount of time that I spend weeding is cut by half at least, if not more. What I do is any time of the year, I will take my silage tarp, which has a white layer on the bottom and black layer on top, and I will roll it out and cover the weeded areas. If there's weeds in there, anything that I want to kill off completely, I cover with silage tarp and just leave there. Now, when the temperatures are warmer in the spring and summertime, I only have to leave that silage tarp there 3 to 4 weeks. If it's fall or winter, sometimes I'll just lay a silage tarp over my beds for 2 or 3 months, sometimes up to 3 months, to kill off any weeds. If you're in the South or if you have any rhizomatic grasses like Bermuda grass or things like that, you know that killing off the green top is not the only thing you have to kill. You also have to kill those roots and rhizomes underneath. And to do that, you have to keep them completely covered without it and really extinguish that sunlight. And that's what that silage tarp does for you. The first use for silage tarps is I use it to kill weeds. The second is I also use them to warm up beds in the springtime. So I have raised permanent beds in my garden, and in the early spring or late winter, our beds are cooler, right? The soil in the beds is a little cooler than the soil in the ground around the beds. And so what we do is roll that silage tarp out, again, dark side up, and we make sure that that bed is covered so that the soil underneath can warm up. The black or the dark color absorbs the sun's rays and allows us to get a few more degrees in temperature higher, so that things like carrots or radishes or turnips are more likely to germinate quicker if the soil is a bit warmer. So it just gives us a little bit of a jump on our season. And the third way that I use silage tarps effectively is I will take a 3 foot length of silage tarp or width of it, cut it, and then I will use it to germinate my carrots. That's a relatively new method of carrot germination for me. I have tried it and have been successful with it, so I'm planning on using it more. But basically what it is you're going to use a seeder, seed your carrot rows as you normally would, water them down thoroughly, and then cover with the silage tarp and put that white side down, and you're going to cover and keep a check on it. It's going to probably take at least a week. Start looking at around day 6, and as soon as your carrot little seedlings pop up, you can take that silage tarp off. Because it's a tarp, you're not losing any moisture, and so the moisture in the soil stays. So you don't have to keep taking the tarp off, watering. One of my other tried and true method uses burlap, and the burlap actually does allow some light in, but as a consequence, it also allows the moisture to leave the bed. And so you do have to keep a little bit of you have to water every day if you're using that burlap, whereas with silage tarp, you don't have to. So it's a lot easier. So those are the 3 main ways that I use silage tarps. And the silage tarp that I bought is right around $200. It depends on the size that you get. There are different sizes for different budgets. Highly recommend it. That was a payday purchase that just took me a little bit of planning to make. It was bigger than an impulse buy, but certainly not anything that we couldn't handle. We cash flow this market garden as much as possible, which means that we pay for things in cash. That number 1 was silage tarp. Number 2 is a backpack sprayer. I bought this Milwaukee 4-gallon electric backpack sprayer last year, and it has been a game changer. We use it, we fill it up with foliar feed, and there are times that we use it for insecticide, like an organic BT to cut down on our cabbage worms. It works beautifully for that. So for our garden, we fill it up a couple times and we spray, regardless of what we're spraying, if it's foliar feed, we'll spray multiple times a week. Um, Either nutrients or something to knock back our cabbage worms. So this backpack sprayer has been huge for that because it really helps. There's no more pumping involved. So the sprayer I had before that was a 2 gallon battery pack sprayer. I think it was a Cobalt from Sears. And then the one before that was a hand pump 1 gallon sprayer. So I really have evolved. And again, this Milwaukee 4 gallon electric backpack sprayer is awesome. It is a game changer and it's something we had to save for. Just a little bit of saving. Wait till payday, right? The kids aren't the only ones who hear wait for payday. I also tell the garden that every now and then the garden has to wait till payday too. The third payday purchase that I made for my garden is a 5 gallon bucket of Agro Thrive. So Agro Thrive fruit and flower, say that 5 times fast, is my preferred liquid fertilizer for pushing through my irrigation lines after I have planted. Now, when I first plant, I usually will plant with something I have from Seven Springs Farm Supply, which is like a chicken manure based uh, general purpose fertilizer. It's granular, so I just throw some down in the planting hole when we're planting on planting day. But then after that, after a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, we'll start pushing fertilizer through. It's a general purpose organic liquid. It's got some corn liquor in there, it's got some fish emulsion ingredients, and it is an organic fertilizer. It's 335, so it's a little bit heavier on the potassium. For the fruiting and all of those good things that we need to have happen if we're looking for fruits and flowers, which for most of our summer crops we are. We're looking for flowers to turn into fruit, and that's how we do that. So I will push that through using it's like a suction. You add your fertilizer in full strength, and then you lay this little thin hose down, and that will hook up into your irrigation lines and it is metered. So it pulls a certain amount of that fertilizer through and then mixes it with the water that's pushing through your irrigation lines. And the way I know that it's working, because it is moving, the fertilizer does move down in the bucket, but it moves really, really slowly. I walk to the far end of my garden. This is like a pro tip. You can smell the fertilizer coming out of the irrigation. It's not unpleasant, but it has like a molassesy, a little bit off smell. You can tell it's in there. So it has a very noticeable smell. And that's how I know that the fertigation is working. It's sucking up a little bit of the fertilizer, mixing it with the water, and pushing it out to all my plants. So that is my third payday purchase. Not something that broke the bank, but something that I had to plan for. Tool number 4 is landscape fabric. I have a preferred landscape fabric of choice, and I'll tell you why. So I need landscape fabric to cut back on the weeds. We talked about how I use silage tarp before I plant to knock back weeds, but then during the growing season, depending on what I'm growing, the weed pressure is too high for me to not use landscape fabric. So I lay that fabric down directly onto my planting bed, will burn holes into it, or if I've used it in previous seasons, it already has holes. So I'll lay it out, tack it down with landscape staples, and then plant into that. I have a preferred product. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it. And I'll tell you a story as to why. A couple years ago, I will never forget this as long as I live. I had purchased several hundred bare root strawberry plants. I wanted to sell strawberries, and I found them at a very good price, bought several hundred of them, and I bought 2 rolls of landscape fabric. It was the thinner 3.2 ounce fabric, and um, it had like the little green lines through it. And I was super excited. I was off to the races. Laid down the landscape fabric, burned the holes in the fabric, planted the bare root strawberries in, watered them in, everything was fine. We were about to go to the beach, and I decided to stop in really quickly to check on the bare root strawberries. Well, that cheap fabric was so cheap that there were tensions that were still left in the warp and weft, which is really nerdy stuff. It's geek stuff, but anyway, there were tensions left in the fabric, and so when it was rolled out and cut, it shrank back up again. When it shrunk, most of it shrunk kind of to one side. It completely passed over the plant. So the plants were not centered in the hole anymore, the planting hole. The planting hole shifted over 2 to 3 inches. And that was for every bare root strawberry. So these are baby plants. They're only a few days old. They are tenuous at best. They're laying down roots. It's touch and go. And now all of a sudden, the hole that I put them in, has now moved and they're not getting any sunlight. And I didn't notice that it had happened the day prior. So they had been that way a whole day. We were out there Frankensteining those beds. We were cutting. I think I cut each 130-foot row 4 times, pulled up the landscape fabric, shifted it over, was cutting like little holes. It took several hours to fix. We fixed it, and I think I only lost like 10 or 20 plants. I will never do that again. I will never. You get what you pay for. If you can spring for the DeWitt 5 ounce, it's really worth it. I can't make any promises. Now, I can't promise you that the DeWitt fabric will not shrink on you, but I can tell you that it's never shrunk on me. And I've been doing this for 5 years now, building these beds. A lot of this is permanent around the perimeter of my garden. Some of it gets a lot more use, and so it's been replaced more frequently. I've laid down thousands of feet of landscape fabric for the purpose of vegetable gardening, and the DeWitt 5 ounce fabric is worth it if you can get it. If you can afford it, do it, because it hasn't shrunk. It keeps its structural integrity. It's a bit thicker. It stands up to your elements. And we don't want this fabric to break down. It's not ideal to have that plastic fabric to break down. And so the thicker it is, the longer it will last, and it won't break down. So that is what I recommend for you. I'll never forget that. Um, yeah, that was a harrowing experience, but it's a good story now. And my last tool is tool number 5. It is a wheel hoe from Haas Tools. Now, I've used a wheel hoe in the past, so this one is an interesting one for me because this is my next payday purchase. I've used a single wheel hoe before, and I absolutely love it. It has transformed how I weed in my main garden. I have 20-foot rows. They are 2.5 feet wide with a 1.5-foot pathway, and you can't get a tractor in at all. You can barely get like a little mantis tiller in there, which we do use for the walkways sometimes if they're really weedy. But I prefer to weed with this wheel hoe, and I'm so excited. The wheel hoe from Haas Tools, you can see here. We're scrolling through. It has you can get a single wheel hoe, a double wheel hoe for more structural integrity and a higher ability to push, and you have a high arch wheel hoe. And then within all of these, for all of these wheel hoes, there are tons of accessories you can buy. This is what blows my mind. I get absolutely excited about this. You can lay down drip irrigation with these. There are plow attachments. So you can hill up potatoes. You can hill up like all kinds of things. Of course, you've got your little oscillator, your little hoe. If you have the double wheel hoe, then you can put your little stirrup hoe on both sides and go to town that way. You can get like double the weeding done in the same amount of time if you get the double wheel hoe. It's a little bit more expensive. That's to be expected. But like all of these attachments are so fun. They're so cool. They're so fun. Like you've got the little tines, the cultivators that allow you to weed, just so many things. And that is my next payday purchase. Like I said, I have used a single wheel hoe in my garden before and I loved it, but it was not mine. And so I am totally springing for that for my next payday purchase. So the concept of a payday purchase is simple. It is something that isn't going to break the bank, but you need to plan for it a little bit, right? Like I said, the kids aren't the only ones who hear wait till payday. The garden hears it too, and these are some of my favorite payday purchases that allow us to cash flow the garden, allow us to keep up our efficiencies and productivities without breaking the bank. So as always, I know you could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here with me, and I do really appreciate that. I want you to get growing, and bye for now.